just to make sure everything is okay. Since I made my ground plane along this edge here and this edge down here, I think the lines here are going to be more accurate. So I'm looking at these leaves here and this line that it cuts. Okay, that looks like it's sticking, no drift, no bump. Okay, now up here it looks like it's drifting a little, and in the middle here, and that's because the street is curved. Okay. So you'll see that it moves here. For instance, if we look at that point, okay, it gets closer here. And if you wanted to match that, you would go into Max here and select this point, and if we go to the side view, we'll see that the press left for left view, you see that the point is above the ground level here. See this one and this one. So if you wanted to make it match, we can move this up to here to make the middle point match. Say if we were putting an object here, okay, but we're going to keep it here and make our building side to side here and build it up. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is set up R node so that as I model, I can see my model in real time rendered with lighting. So I'm going to press F10, change it to active shade here, and make sure R node is selected. Okay, I'm going to make the render a little bit smaller because it'll take a little bit longer to update the 1280 by 720. Then I'm going to, let's say, create a box here for now. And if I create my box, it's a little bit off, so I'm going to rotate this here. Okay, maybe go to my top view. If I want to perfectly align it, I can click on this align tool. So with the box selected, I can click on the align and click on the plane, and this will pop up, and I can click on orient to axis here, and maybe center it on my X and Y position, but probably not my Z, and then click OK. So if I press P, you will see that it's aligned to the box. Okay, I'll make this a little bit lower here. Okay, then I can create my R node lights. Click over here, make sure R node is chosen, click on R node. Now I'm going to create two lights. One's going to be a distant light and the other one's going to be a sky dome light. Okay, my sky dome light is just an environment light, and I can place that anywhere in the scene. And if I press render here, okay, it's going to be white here. So I'm going to go to my camera view here, or go to this view here, and click lock here and re-render. Okay, now when you first create this, it's a little overblown, so I'm going to just lower my exposure down to 0 here. Okay, and then I'm going to create my another light. So go back over here. Okay, R node, create another light here. This one time change this one to distant. Okay, and then I'm going to move it over here. You can pretty much put distance anywhere too, but I like to put it over my object so I can easily visualize it. And then if my camera is over here looking this way, if I look into my scene, I can see that the shadows are on this side. That means the sun is the other side of the tree. Okay, so that means the sun here is rotating this way. And if you see, as I rotate my lighting here, I should be able to see my shadows, but I don't. So I'm going to put an R node material on these here so I can catch my shadows here. So I'm going to go into the slate material editor this time. Okay, when I do that, I'm just going to click on a standard surface here, and for now I'm going to double click on this and make sure my basic color, my base color here is about a darker gray here, and I turn off my specular reflections, I can make it to 0 here, or turn this black here. And I'm going to select my box here, and just say assign, right click on here and assign material to selection. Okay, and it should update here. Okay, and for the ground here, I can put the same material here, and I can see my shadows here. See, and so if I rotate my lights here, maybe more of an angle here, then you'll see that the shadow gets the shadow becomes more evident here as I rotate at an angle, and if I go this way, it's not going to be so evident. What I can do is adjust this angle here. I think when you created the default it's 0.5, so it's pretty sharp. Okay. And as you increase this angle up, it becomes a little bit softer. Okay. Okay. And if you can increase the intensity here, it will bring up the light. But for now, I'm just modeling it, and I just want to make sure I can see details and shadows. So I'm just going to leave this as a basic setup here, and come back to this when I'm done with my model. Okay. Oh, and if you want to catch the shadows here, different versions of Arnold will have the matte shadow material done differently. I believe the one we covered in class, we can create a matte material. Let's see here. Where's my matte material? Matte material. Okay, so here's a matte material. The one we created in class was a matte material, and then we created a matte shadow, and we piped that into the color here, like that. Okay, and then you can apply. But for this version of Arnold, and I'm not sure which one came first, this one or the one at school, if we right click on it, we don't see the assign to material. Okay, so what we have to do is create a, let's see here, we have to create under the Arnold material here, map to material. So this is a little bit differently than how we did it in class. Okay, and then we double click on here, and then for this no map, we will add in a I believe it's a shadow matte or a matte here, but let me put on shadow matte here. And if we go into here, we can click in our background here. So we're going to add in our bitmap background. Okay, and again, the one that we do in school, it's a little bit more straightforward. I will probably make a separate tutorial for that part. Click OK here, and we should be able to see an update here. Oh, so now that this is a map to material, if we right click on it, the assign material to selection is available, and we should be able to see our background. Now again, we're having that problem that it's mapped as in top view here. The material is mapped on the screen here, so we're going to have to go into our background here, and I'm going to click on here and change it to environment and change it to screen. Okay, so that basically makes it match to the background, and we should be able to see some kind of shadow happening here. Okay, so there's our shadow here, and I'm just going to adjust it a little bit so I get it matching the trees. So I want it slightly facing this way, and I'm going to increase the angle a little bit so it's a little bit softer, not too much, just so it comes close to the trees here. Okay, so something like that. Now I'm going to close down all these windows, my material window here, and my render panel, and I'm just going to leave this here, and I'm just going to start to extrude and create buildings. So when we create a box, it's called a parameter or a parametric object, and it has parameters. It's kind of like a vector in Illustrator, but now we want to convert it or rasterize it to like a bitmap in Photoshop. So we want to do that here to gain access to the polygons and vertex. So I'm going to right click on my box here and convert to editable poly. Okay. Oh, before I do that, I'm just going to go undo here real quick. Generally, I'm going to press F3 here and then F4 to see the lines, the overlay of the lines on our object. If I want to do a window, say here and maybe here, then I would figure out how many segments I want. So here I'm just going to, I created 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's with the 8 segments here. And maybe in the front I want to make a door here. And then maybe an extra wire here. So I created 6 here, okay? And then I'm just going to right click, convert to editable poly again. I'm going to maybe press 4 from my face level, or I can just select this here. And I'm going to select these polygons. I can also select this and then press grow, and it will grow my selection here. I'm just going to right click, extrude, and bring this up. So extrude here, maybe stop here, and then that's where my window is going to become start. And then I'm going to extrude another one. So I'm going to probably delete these 2 polygons and make my window, and delete these polygons to make my door, and maybe extrude one more up, something like that. Okay. And now I'm going to press W to select these polygons here, maybe these 2 doors here. So it's going to be a room with a big door. Okay, maybe this one and this one here. Okay, and I'm just going to press delete. Okay, and if we see our house here, it's starting to have some details there. Okay, so next I'm going to maybe add more details in here. For instance, if I want to make a doorway, if you look at here, the polygon's pretty thick, so I can either add a shell modifier here. Let's see what happens if I add a shell modifier here. Shell modifier will make it thick. See, we'll add walls here, and if we give it an inner and outer amount, you'll see that it's growing our wall here. When you do this though, this happens, so we just go down here and click straighten corners, and it should straighten it out. So that's one way of addressing that, and you'll see that our windows here will have the thickness of the wall here. So I'm going to go back down here. 15 centimeters is a little too thick. I think a wall is usually about 10 centimeters here. Okay, something like that. We can do further modeling here, but I'm just gonna add in another editable poly here. So an editable poly basically just makes it become like an edit poly again here, but you can always turn it off if you don't like it and create another one, or get more options. So I'm going to go to polygons here and maybe select these 2 and create inset, and inset allows you to create a little box while maintaining the 4-sided polygons everywhere. And I'm going to right click again and say extrude and maybe pull it in here. So you see, as I do that, later I can put artwork or put a light down here. It's giving more detail to my house. Okay. What I can also do is maybe select this polygon here and press W for selection. And if I hit Shift and select an adjacent polygon, one this way, you see how it highlights this greenish yellow color. If I click on that, it will select all of it. Okay. Or same here. I click one and then press Shift, and I can click on the other one, and it will select the top here. Okay, well, for now I'm just going to do this one and this one. And if I go down to these tools here under this Swift loop, and I'm just going to, let's see here, maybe create some kind of mode here. So click on that, and if I do, you see that I created a line there. Okay, pressing W again. I kind of went down slanted here. Okay, well, I might need to fix that. I'm not sure why that happened. Okay. Okay, so it's following. Oh, okay, that didn't turn out too good. The shell modifier can be a little bit buggy sometimes, like here, so we need to straighten that out. I'm going to go to my local, because right now it's at my world. So if I change to local here, oops, move local, I'm going to, let's see, local, okay, it's doing a local vertex, so I'm going to go actually to the parent. Okay, so it's the axis will align with the box itself. Okay, I'm going to move that here, straighten it out. Okay, okay, and then maybe there might be a difference in the outside and the inside. So you know, at this point I can probably raise the ground up, or I can realign these lines. So I'm going to go to my front view, and if I look at all my vertex here, these are the lines that are in question. I can just do a quick select here, so click and drag here. That's going to select all those vertex here, and I can press R for scale, or this button right here, select and scale, and if I select everything and click on the y-axis and press down, it's going to even out. Okay, so I'm scaling down the distance between all these vertex on the y-axis. So you can see now that the vertex are all the same size. And now why would I want to do that? I can always like add in another color here, or I can go inside and extrude, you know, give another level of extrusion here. So I'm going to hit shift here. So maybe let's try an extrusion here. And sometimes it gets a little messy here. So if I extrude, it probably goes one way or the other. Okay, maybe I'm just gonna, what I'm gonna do is just click on it once. Let's see here. Okay, I'm gonna go extrude, maybe click on it a little bit here. Okay, it's gonna move it to one way, and I'm gonna bring it back here, and then I'm gonna go to my scale here and maybe scale on my y-x axis here. So I'm gonna select this. Okay. Okay. Okay, so it's also selecting the outside too. So let me undo this. So I'm probably just going to select the inside ones, okay, and then scale in. I don't want to do the outside. And I can give the color treatment to the outside. So I'm selecting all of these. And so since I have that selected, I'm going to press F3 so I can see through what I'm doing, and then just scale in here. So as I scale in here, you'll see that it uniformly shrinks inside, see? And then I might have to adjust these vertex or figure out a way to make it look right here. So let's go to vertex here. So see, I can either select these vertex, deselect this. You press Alt to deselect the ones you don't want. Again, I'm going to go to my scale parent here. Okay, let's just go to, okay, so maybe scale it back out here. That kind of bothers me because I'm having these planes probably overlap each other, and that might cause problems for rendering. Okay, so the better thing to do here is probably create another segment here and push it out properly, or do another extrusion here. And so what I can do now is, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. I'm probably going to let's see, we can do an extrusion or a hinge. Okay, so let's do a hinge here. So hinge from edge. So I'm going to select this polygon here and then say hinge from edge, and if I select which edge I want, say like this one, it can go out like this, see? Or if I select this side, it will go the other way around. So you know, you can do some type of hinge like that. Okay, I'm going to unclick this and again click again, hinge from edge, and I'm going to, okay, oops, I did the other way around. Okay, this one. So something like that. And You know, obviously you can't walk in and out of here, but so I'm gonna probably select that, hit Control, and scale it out. So something like this. Okay, and then maybe bring this out a little bit. But that way I don't have overlapping polygons. Okay. See. Okay. The last thing I want to do is have some type of face overlapping another one. That will cause render problems. So when you have some kind of distance between this face and this face, you're going to reduce that. Okay. So we're going to do something like this, and then we can square that out a little bit. Okay, something like that for now, and it looks square in our render here. Okay, we can probably add steps here if we want. So I'm going to go to polygon here, select this, and maybe just I'll do it all around. So I'm going to hit Shift and select this. So it's going to create another loop selection there. Oops, and I'm going to click on Swift Loop, and again do the same thing here. Okay, that's going to be a little bit hard. It's getting confused with the other one. I'm just going to, another one is you can do a insert here. So I'm going to turn this off and do an insert. So an insert just cuts it in half. Okay. Oh, my house is below the ground. So I'm going to bring this here. That was probably created below the ground because of my shell. Okay, so I'm just going to make sure it's right at the ground. Okay. Okay, and then go back down to my polygon level and select these guys and extrude out. So I have like some stairs here. So something like that. Okay. Now my shadows are a little bit floating above the ground. Let's see, why is that? Might have too much of an angle there. Okay, that looks a little bit more reasonable. I had the sun angled too much here. Okay, and maybe back down this way. Okay, trying to match the position of the sun as much as possible. Okay, now later on when we want better resolution, we can always up the samples here. So samples, give it some samples. It becomes smoother. And also in the Arnold renderer settings, if we go to Arnold renderer here, we can bring these settings up and get a better, smoother render. So you can see just by opening 4 samples here, it's a bit smoother here. There's still some noise in there, but that's because we have to probably bring a little bit of each of these, maybe indirect light. Give it a couple. This diffuse, I'll make a couple bounces here. If you change this, then you'd have to refresh the render here. Okay, and it will reset in there. Okay. Now, if we wanted to add textures to this, say like a cement, stucco, or something, then we can go online and download materials and apply it on here. Okay, so I'm just going to go to Google here, and I'm going to type in maybe cement texture. I'm just going to download some cement texture here. Let's see here. Maybe something a little bit high resolution at least. This might be a little too much, 5,000. Okay, somewhere around 2,000 or 3,000 is okay for this. Okay. I'll just go for something like this here and then download it. Okay, so save as, and I'm going to create another folder here for textures. Probably name the cement so that later on when I find it, I can find it easily. We can find another one, maybe say stucco texture for the walls. Let's do, let's see here. Let's go with this one. Oh, the thumbnail. Okay. Let's do another one. Okay, I'm just gonna go for this one here. Oh, it has a little. Oh, it has a watermark on it. Okay. Okay, so something like this, 4,000, a little bit high, but it's okay. So let's save this here also, stucco texture. Okay, I'm just gonna save that there. Okay, let's go back to my Max. Okay, so I'm gonna press M again to bring up my material editor. Okay, I'm gonna zoom out here. I think earlier I created an Arnold material for this. Now what we can do is I'm just going to right now collapse this. You can build more layers on it if you want, but I'm just going to collapse it now because I don't like to keep my stack too high. So if I right click convert to editable poly, it's going to collapse everything into just one layer. Okay, so convert to editable poly here, or you can do it here. Right click, collapse to, okay, and just say yes to everything. So it's now, you lose all of your shell modifier and the previous editable poly. So make sure you're sure that you want to do that before you do that. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select this polygon here and maybe go to my front view to select all my lower polygons here. Let's see here. Okay, and if I press P here, I just want to make sure I have everything. Oh, I don't have this selected, so okay, so maybe select this, okay, and then deselect this. Alright, so I have all my stairs selected, and what I can do is create another Arnold material here. Okay, where is that Arnold? Standard surface, Arnold standard surface. So create a new one, and what I can do is under, I'm going to double click on this, and under base color, add in a bitmap, and then find that bitmap that I had earlier. So textures, I wanted cement for my stairs. Click OK, open, okay, and then I'm going to right click assign to material to selection here. Okay, so what that does is it will only apply to the selected material. So if I press F2, okay, the red highlight will come off, but right now I don't see it. I would have to go again, right click on this and say show, let's see here, show, how come it's not in this version? Okay, show background in preview. Okay, show shaded material in viewport. Okay, so for some reason this version won't let me assign it through here. So if I, the version at school will allow you to do that. So here I'm going to say compact material editor. Okay, and where's that material at? Okay, I'm just going to have to create a new one from scratch here. So I'm going to create another slot here, standard, say an Arnold shader, standard surface, and if I click on here, it's the same thing, assign material to selection. It's going to assign just the stairs, and you see that our stairs turned white, okay, and it says base color. I'm going to go ahead and click on this again, bitmap, and then choose that texture again, stucco cement, okay, and now you will see that appear here. And if it doesn't, you can always click on this so that you can see it in a viewport, but it should be here. Now one thing to note, that if I go closer to here, I gotta go my camera view. If I go closer here, you'll see that it's not mapped correctly, and that's because when I extrude it out, it didn't have any coordinates. So what I need to do is go back into my polygon level, select those polygons again, and I click, drag, and then I alt deselect these. Okay, and then what I can do is add in go to my modifiers and add in my edit poly. I'm sorry, a UVW map modifier, UVW map here, and when I do that, it applies a planar or planar, and then we click on box here, and it should give a box mapping. Okay, and I'm going to press F2 here to turn that off here so I can see what I'm doing. Okay, let's see. Okay, and it maps it on like that. Now here it's a little bit big, the size, so I'm going to you can use real world and you know, adjust this how you want. Okay, I can use tiling, so you know it's being tiled 1 across, but if I do maybe 2, it gets smaller, the details. Okay, okay, I might need to adjust back, you know, and then maybe sometimes if you can't get it right, you have to go into Photoshop and weld the seams here, create a bigger map and make it seamless. But for now, I'm just going to probably do 2 and 2 right now. Let's see, that doesn't look right. I'm just going to keep it at 1 and 1 here. Okay, so you know, this is not the perfect texture, but I'm just showing you the process of how you would apply it and separate it. And so once you're happy with that, we can, you know, what I like to do is just right click convert to editable poly again, but go back into their polygon, but this time press Control I, so select the invert, and then we'll create another material next here and change this to Arnold, a standard surface. Okay, and then go back to base color and choose bitmap, and then we can choose our stucco texture here. Okay, and then click assign to material to selection, and you'll see we have the same problem. When I extrude it, it got stretched. So with this polygon still selected, I'm going to go to my UVW map, okay, and then add in a box. Okay, so you see that it's mapped a little bit better because the details are smaller and this detail is too big. So again, I would go into Photoshop, create a texture that's maybe 4 or 6 times bigger than this one, and then tile it out and paint in the seams and make it more smaller with better detail. Okay, so that's basically you know, adding textures. Oh, and I'm gonna collapse this, convert to editable poly, so it, you know, it remains 1 polygon now. Also, one thing to note is the shininess of this. So I'm going to go back up here to the parent face. At this time we can go back to the slate material here, and we can use the eyedropper to pick this material here. And you notice that when I select this eyedropper, it gives you a material multi-sub object. Okay, that means that it's one material but with a few objects in it. Let me move this out of the way here. Okay, this is one thing I don't like about slate, that it gets a little bit messy here. But it's actually 2 materials. So what happens is when you applied the first material, it became number 1, and it applied this multi sub-object material, and then the second one became this one. And if I double click on this one, that's the material you know, for the bottom. So if we view image here, that's the wall. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to double click on here, and I'm going to lower the specular reflections so I don't get the shininess here, because the walls is not supposed to be shiny. Okay, if you want to keep this marble, then you can probably keep the specular, but I'm going to tone this down a little bit, not as much as it should be. So you see, as I decrease it, it's not as reflective as it should be. Okay. Okay, and then we can also play with the roughness. So you can have it highly reflective, but dull. Okay. So that dulls out the image. It looks like more like a wooden floor type, not metal or marble shiny, just wooden floor shiny. I'm going to go back to my comment here and make a bigger render here. Okay, and then re-click this, and just to get a better view of what it would look like. Okay, and again, these textures are not the best. You would probably have to go into Photoshop to accurately model that. Okay, so you can do other details just by extruding inset, maybe the bevel if you want, but that's like the basic start to build your geometry. Okay, now I'm going to show you in the next video how to set it up to render and bring it into Nuke.